Hi, my name is Ryan Hreljac. I'm the executive director and founder of the Ryan's Well Foundation, and I'm here today with Kellylee Evans. Kellylee, thank you so much for joining us.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me.
So excited to have you. I keep on thinking back to when you first became Ryan's Well ambassador back. It must have been over 15 years ago now.
Was it really
And
that long ago?
I feel like it was because I would have just been finishing high school. And I remember your hair looked a little
And
bit
I
different
also
back
was just
then.
finishing high school. No, I'm kidding.
I think we were both closer to that for sure. But I just, I remember thinking back then, your Christmas concert at the NIC, and just the profile you gave for Ryan's Well, along with so many other amazing causes. And it just seems wild that, now we're this many years later and reconnecting.
Yeah, I'm back again. And I'm just, as usual, so impressed by like just the fact that you're still here, you're still doing it and, still making changes. I'm really impressed. I'm proud, you know, met your parents and I imagine they must still be super proud. They were proud back then. I imagine they're still super proud.
Well, I think it was a mishmash how we were able to get everything. It was my parents and volunteers and people like yourself that all kind of came together from all different angles and then ended up doing something that had a lot of longevity somehow. And now we're still doing work today, which is pretty cool to be a part of.
Yay, yay. Good job, good job.
And how about yourself? I know the last decade has been a roller coaster for you. How are you, and how have things been since you were an ambassador way back in the day?
Well, Ryan, good question. it's it's funny because like okay, so that was 15 years ago, and then 5 years later, I think I'm trying to think if you and your parents ever came out to my house out in the country. Um, yeah, your parents came back when I
I
wasn't
think my
doing so
folks
well.
did, and they dropped off. Yeah.
Some
Hmm.
food, yeah. Why? Because
Hmm.
I was unwell,
The food.
and yeah. So 10 years ago, at that same house out in Ashton, not too far from where
Hmm.
you guys are, I was hit by lightning, and that was just like a life changing event for me, and it's led to about well, it's been 10 years now, and I had some mobility issues. I had multiple head injuries, like just from like fainting or not feeling well, like in between all of that. So I've had times where I've been like still on the road. I've been on the road in a wheelchair. I've been on the road and over the last 18 months using a mobility scooter. But like now it's been 2 months, maybe I think it's about 3 months now that I haven't needed my mobility scooter and I've been feeling like so much better. And I've been out and using my own legs and just really getting out there. So I just feel like when you said 15 years, I'm like, whoa, like 15 years for me it really does feel like a lifetime. I'm sure it feels like a lifetime for you for sure, but it really feels like a lifetime for
Hmm.
me. Yeah, things have changed. Things have changed.
Well, I think I've heard many of tales of the scooter, but it sounds like you're eclipsing it in the best way possible. I think the thing I remember most about your concert back at the NAC, I think it was a
Yeah,
Christmas concert, right?
yeah.
And I think the thing I remember most was just your energy and just your movement and how you felt the music kind of thing. And it's just is so like I can't imagine. I can only imagine how difficult it would be, especially when you think of jazz. Like it's so much more connected than any other music. We'll probably get some mail on that one about
Well,
some brand of music, but
somebody will say something.
uh,
Yeah,
someone will say
no.
something.
I mean, like the last Christmas show I did last year was seated. And I mean, I'm
Mhm.
so thankful. I'm so thankful for my scooter. Sunny is her name. She's still in the back there, because I'm still
Aw.
like hoping, that I'm hoping I don't need to use her again, but she's there just in case. But
She's there if you need her. Yeah.
yeah, she's there, a trusted friend. But when I needed to use Sunny, that was like such a huge moment for me. It was that moment of recognizing that I needed help, that I couldn't do things on my own the way that I thought, I could and should. And,
Mm.
there were even like the first time when I went to use the wheelchair in the beginning in 2013, right after the lightning strike. I I just felt just so conflicted about it, you know, but I
Mm.
didn't have a choice. I really needed it to get around. I was still working, and I think at the time I was the sole income provider. You know, we needed the money. And
Yeah.
and
Well,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
it was hard, and I had a big tour planned. I was opening for John Legend and you know, Erica Badu and a bunch of different artists, and it was like such a big a big moment in my career, and to have this thing like try to slow me down, you know. And I spent the last 10 years learning like how to slow down, and recognizing that there's nothing wrong with slowing down, you know, and that you can,
Mm.
learning to ask for help, and then learning to receive the help I'm being given. And yeah, and then admitting that I needed even more help, that I couldn't, like, by the time I needed the scooter, it was
Mm.
like I couldn't push anymore. I couldn't pretend anymore that I was okay. And that, you know, so yeah, that first little while, I didn't want to go out. I didn't want people to ask me because I'm 48. I don't look 48, I know. And people will say like, what are you doing? Why do you need a scooter? You know? And so just not wanting to answer those questions, not wanting to be in that space. And then I recognize like, wait a second, like I can be out. I don't have to stay inside all the time. Like I don't have to isolate anymore. So I'm so thankful for Sunny. You know, it was really like a really big deal for me. Like, and I'm thankful, but I'm really thankful to have my mobility back too.
I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing I remember when I was first starting Ryan's Well, I remember when I was just doing chores at my house, I loved it because I could measure like how hard I worked and I was doing it by myself. And then when the goals became bigger and the world, has different plans, it's daunting, things change, and it can be, unfair. And that's the one thing I think about, like, as I listen to you, is like it just sounds unfair. But then recognizing that, there is support out there, and sometimes it's need of asking for it and helping and receiving it, and it ends up making a big change.
A big
I
change.
don't think the Ryan's Well would have gotten anywhere if we didn't ask for any help.
Well, that's the thing, you know, and it's funny because it's
Yeah.
like people look at you and can make goals for themselves. I remember at one point I was at the NAC watching a show, and I had my scooter, and you know, I was kind of getting in
Mhm.
and out of it and getting to my spaces where I could go, to go and sit and watch the show. And then on the way back up to my seat at the intermission, either at the intermission or at the end, a lady came up to me and she said, I'm so glad to see you today in the scooter. And I'm like, what's going on? And she says, I've been trying to get my husband to get a scooter for years, you know, and like we're stuck inside the house. And I mean, this is an older couple, you know, in their 70s, I think, maybe 60s, 70s. And her husband was like, you know, doing his best to get up and down the ramp, you know, and things at the NAC. And she could see that and say, like, hey, look, like here's this person using it. And to think that, like, you know, me being brave enough to finally admit I need help, get the help, and be out and visible with it could help other people admit that they also needed that help too. And so many people came up to me and they were like, oh, where did you get that? Or how, you know, or is that easy to use? Or how much was that? You know, and it was interesting to be able to offer that to people. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not something I think I would ever think of, but to connect people to something that they wouldn't otherwise know about, but then, they see it, helping someone else that's in the spotlight, and it's like, oh, well, that could be helpful for my wife or my father, my mother. Yeah, I raised my hand and I volunteered to do that part of the school project. My teacher was very skeptical, thinking that, I'd go home and that would be the end of it and she'd never hear about it again. But I don't know, something irked me about it. The fact that I could walk those 10 steps to get to the water fountain and another person my age. I think that was the big thing, is my teacher stressed that it was kids our age. It was 6 and 7 years old who had to drop out of school and had to go get water. And it just, it just seemed so bizarre. So I remember going home asking my folks for the money, and you've met my folks are very kind, considerate people. They volunteer lots. They both worked full time, and I was 6. So I remember they kind of said, I said I need $70 to build a well to bring the world clean water, and they were like, oh, aw, that's nice. Off you go. We got to make dinner. So I think it was only after like days of pestering them that they finally, my mom ended up sitting me down and said, like, Ryan, like, it's great that you care about this, but we're not just going to give you the money and then, move on. Like, if you really want it, you can like do extra chores to earn the money, and then we'll support you. So I did vacuuming, washing windows, shoveling snow. This is the first time I've shoveled snow in a while this morning, but I remember that was a tough one, and all these things I didn't do before. And I think one of the things that I didn't mention when I was a kid, but try to mention now, is I had about a month time frame to raise the $70, and by the time a month had gone by, I had actually only raised $25. So I actually failed the first time out, and yeah, my teacher predicted it, kind of thing, because I wasn't the person to really follow through on my commitments, and
Or
when I was a
obviously your
kid,
parents didn't pay you enough.
that's the problem. I wasn't paid enough. That's why everything failed.
Sounds like you did $70 of work.
Maybe I'm overshooting it, but I don't know.
Mm.
I worked hard, but I came up short. But and that could have been that. But my mom always was harping on me to keep my commitments. So I kept doing chores. It took 4 months. Finally raised $70. My school wouldn't take it anymore. Brought it to an organization in the big city where we both are now in Ottawa that used to build clean water wells, and they kind of had the same approach that my parents did when I came home with the idea. It was, that's so sweet. And they showed me around their office, explain what they did. And then they said, yeah, it's going to cost a lot more than $70 to build a well. That's just the hand pump that goes on top of the well. Like, to build a well is going to cost like at least $2,000. But, like, good work, off you go. And I told them before I left that I just go home, I do more chores, I come back once I had $2,000. And we got home, and my mom said to my dad, yeah, it's not over. He's trying to raise $2,000 now. To which, my dad, Mark, he was just like, like, Jesus. Like I looked up to my dad a lot, like even now and back then, especially. Like, he's the volunteer basketball coach. He was the police officer. He was like, every boy has, he was my hero. But I had a chat with him, and he said, like, Ryan, you showed tenacity and perseverance, and you didn't give up with what you're trying to do, and you should feel really proud of that. But it's okay to stop. You just didn't want me to fail. We're talking about how unfair things are. Like, my dad understood that more than anything, that the world was an unfair place, and that your 6-year-old can't solve it by vacuuming the house. And so he didn't want me to feel upset of how unfair it all was. But I thought that one well really would make the world change the world. So even though it was a long shot, I kept doing chores, ended up doing chores for my neighbors, went to my school, ended up doing little fundraisers like Pokemon card raffles and basketball tournaments, and then slowly grew little by little. It took a year. We were able to do that very first well, and now 22 years later, fast forward, we've done over 1,700 water projects. So sometimes, even if things are unfair, you gotta take a stab at it, and then we end up doing some good.
Aww. Like, sorry. Aww. But it's an awe moment. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great lesson. That's a great lesson. I can just, I don't know too many Ryans.
Well, I think they're out there. I think the only, like, when I think of me now, like, I'm 32, like I have a son, I'm all grown up, and I think about something like the world's water crisis. I don't think I'd ever do anything now if I were to just start out, because I know more. I know about how the world works and how complicated it is. I think more like of how my dad thought. So sometimes we need a little bit of that. We need some naivety, Ryan type story of young people who are maybe naive, maybe are unfamiliar with how unfair the world is, to take a crack at things, end up changing things. Because otherwise, I don't think we'd do much.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds a little bleak. I don't know.
No, I don't. I don't think that's wrong. I think that even like when I was growing up, I had a sense that, you know, a lot of like you could just tell it in the way that grown-ups talk to
Mm.
us, you know. It's just like, you'll see, you know what
You'll
I
see.
mean,
One
like,
day you'll
yeah,
wake
one
up.
day you'll figure it out, you know. And I laugh because like I'm 48, and you know, I have some older friends, you know, it could be in their 70s or 80s,
Mm.
and they'll be like, you'll see. You know,
You're
like
still being told.
we're
Oh my
still,
gosh.
yeah, we're still young bucks, you know, young ones trying to figure things out. So yeah, we're always, you know, there's always another level of wiser. And like I look naive
Mm-hmm.
to like an 80-year-old or and a 60-year-old and a 50-year-old, you
Mm.
know, and probably naive to my kids.
Well, sometimes I feel like that's actually the most positive trait that I had growing up that I try to hang on to, that it's easy to lose. And I was traveling recently, and I was talking to teachers, and it was funny because it was the one circumstance where the teachers were all younger than me. They're all like in their like mid-20s kind of thing. And I feel like I actually like learned a lot from them in terms of, you know, approaching youth and talking to kids and stuff like that. And like this like the new, like when you're talking about the zoomers, and afterwards like having different perspectives and being in such a interesting position to change the world in their own way.
Mm.
And I don't know, it's nice to see the challenges and also see the opportunity in terms of the value there, because I think, you know, I was lucky that a lot of people who were older listened to what I was trying to say, and in terms added value, who were, you know, engineers and teachers and people who knew a lot more about the world's water crisis than I did. So I don't know if we can see the value in those ideas and then, you know, prop them up. I think we'll have many more Ryan type stories on the way.
Well, I mean, like, since we mentioned water crisis, I
Mm.
am I admittedly, you know, don't know much about anything really, you know, and so I've got one of the experts on the world's water crisis here on the line, Mr. Hreljac.
I'm not even sure I call myself an expert. It's a
No, I
big,
know
complicated
you're like the
issue.
last person that would call yourself an expert. So
Well, I think at
allow
the
me
end
to
of,
say that you know more than I do, and more than perhaps a few people listening. So,
mm,
like, what if you were telling a 6-year old about the world water crisis today? What would you tell them?
mm. Well, it's still complicated, but it's also still simple. There's still almost a billion people that don't have access to clean water, and a billion more that don't have access to proper sanitation. And it's one of the issues that's complicated in lots of different areas. Water is not everywhere, but there are a lot of places in water poor regions that lack basic infrastructure. So wells, protected springs, things that are able to get, you know, quality potable water to people that aren't there because of a lack of infrastructure. And for those people, it means the world. If you have water, you can go to work. You don't have to worry about getting diarrhea, so you don't have to get sick. You can stay out of the clinic more. It helps especially youth, women, and seniors, because they're the ones who bear the water burden in terms of having to get it for the household when there's not a source there. So if you can elevate those people up, where women have more time in their day, where kids can actually get a primary education, at least hopefully a secondary education, especially girls, it leads to so much more being done. So I'm a little biased, like my entire life has been in water, so I think water leads to everything, but I think there's a little bit of truth in that. You know, it's one of the sustainable development goals, one of the top things that we're trying to, as a world, trying to solve and help with. And I think if we can keep on making more strides to make sustainable water happen for people, then, you know, a lot of you know, we talk about water being a human right a lot. You'll hear that thrown around from United Nations and from people saying that water is a human right, which I think I completely agree with. But I'd also say water is a human, it's a responsibility. It's not something, having potable water isn't something that magically happens, and that we gotta make sure that we're investing in communities so that they have a water source and they also can take care of it for a lifetime for their family. And that's not something that's easy. It takes a lot of training, a lot of working with local communities to find water resources that work for each specific one. And but the value, I think, is just unbelievably vast. So I've always thought of water as being one of the most important things in the world. Like you go to Africa and you see it plastered on like taxis and like billboards. Like you'll just see randomly it says like water is life, and it's kind of like, oh, you know, that's neat. But I think once you don't have it, all of a sudden it clicks and it realizes makes the world. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to take water for granted when you just can turn on a tap and it's there for you, you know. And
Absolutely.
I
Hmm.
mean, like even like where I lived out in the country, we were out in a house in Ashton, and it was this amazing space that was like built into, I can't remember what you would call it back. It was built into like a hill, you know,
Hmm.
stack wall, big big windows, like a big concrete floor to heat for like the heat sink, and like it was, you know, very energy efficient and was also on septic, you know, and we also had a well. And every year, like the well, like earwigs might get in, you know, and so like you had that moment where like you're not sure if you're going to be sick, you know, so you need
Yeah.
to test the water. And getting into that whole idea of testing the water and not drinking the water and waiting for the test to come back, realizing that now you have to shock your well, and just like those are like
Hmm.
steps that, you know, that's not filling a Brita water
No.
filter, you
It's a
know.
little bit more than that.
It's a little bit more than that, you know. And
Hmm.
yeah, living on septic and hoping your pipes don't freeze, and
Hmm.
all of these, and having frozen pipes, and like all the things that, like, you know, with just like, and I guess people like, you know, out here who might have a cottage might understand some of that, but I think a lot of people really do have this idea that we'll just turn it on and let it run. And the second thing that hit me, you know, from what you were saying was, you mentioned girls. And I still remember back when I came to the offices and I got the tour and I got some information, you know, about what was going on. Just that statistic of learning about, you know, just the idea of girls going through their monthly menstruation and not being able to like have a place to be clean, you know, and so like not going to school. And I mean, we know what it's like when you miss a day of school,
Hmm.
but you know, they could be missing like a week of information. And it's, yeah, like that's another part of life, you know, to be isolated in that way, to be away
Mm.
from your education and to try to get back on track. I mean, I'm not sure, is that something that you're still working with as well, or not so much?
No, 100%. That's a
Yeah.
break point for girls, especially post-secondary. If you can get them to go to school for primary, that's the next hurdle is once, girls start to menstruate, if there's not a good education, if there's not private spaces, then girls won't go for school for those stretches. And then, a day can turn into a
Into
week
a
that
week,
can turn
to
into
2 weeks. Yeah.
not going to
Never going
school at
back
all.
again. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it seems like something so, that can be solved. You look at, providing safe spaces, providing education, providing water, on at the school, so that there's things available, so they don't have to duck out, and those all lead into one thing after another, and ends up, allowing someone to go to high school, which ends up, you know,
Changing a family. I
changing a
mean,
family.
yeah, the statistics about, you know, what happens to families when the mom is educated, when she's able
Mm,
to earn an income, you know.
absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah.
But I think I've heard so much about your journey and your recovery and stuff like that. I don't think I've heard the story of how you first started with music in the first place. You
Oh
were
my
talking about
goodness.
your roots just a second ago. I'm curious, like, what was the first time you said to yourself, I want to be a jazz singer?
Oh, well, it wasn't so much that I wanted to be a jazz singer, but I knew I wanted to be a singer
Okay.
like in kindergarten. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So, you know, I was your age, you know, and young, when I was younger, I think. Yeah, like
Younger, you have me beat.
oh, but I was not doing anything but singing on stage. But like I had my first solo, and I
When did
remember
you have your first solo?
in kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that was in front of the school or something, and I just remember loving it. But
Aw.
I like in my family, lawyer, doctor, engineer. Those were like the options, you know. And
I guess singer is a little bit different than
yeah, yeah. And I
than
mean, it was
most
like
singers.
great. You can sing, you know.
Hmm.
That's nice. You can draw. Woohoo! You know, get to work. And
Oh,
so
nice.
and so yeah, I didn't get a chance to really like focus on that side early. I
Hmm.
really had to like focus on school. And so, and also I just really didn't know when I was going to be like, honestly, my mom was just so much, and my dad, like you were saying, like you had like, such huge, like your dad was your hero, and
Mm.
like I just wanted very much to impress these two people, and I wanted them to be proud of me, and I knew that doing well in school was the way to do that. It was very clear, actually. They didn't make it, there was no like waffling about it, like that was it.
It's not
And
some convoluted test. It was very
no,
clear. Do well in school and
cool,
everything
yeah,
else will be okay.
exactly. So yeah, it was tough though, because that was my dream. Like my dream, I remember I would watch Star Search. That was like before your time, I think. And like,
What
all
was
those
the show?
Star Search.
Star Search. No, I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't know that one.
No, you don't know that one. Yeah. But it would be like I would watch and I would like dream, and I would sing at people's funerals and weddings and like and school assemblies and things like that. But I really didn't I didn't really feel brave enough to take this route for a career until my mom passed away. And I realized, like, and I was like, so she died in 99, so I was 24.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just realized like how short life is, you know? And I mean, it wasn't like she died and then the next day I was like, freedom. It wasn't like that. It was more like I tried. I kept still trying to like finish school, like because I was taking my master's at that time in legal studies,
Hmm.
legal philosophy, because that's what the world needs more of.
Legal
Legal
philosophy.
philosophers. Mm. Um, and yeah, so I really worked hard at trying to get back to being interested in the topic, but I had just spent like months like trying to take care of my mom who had cancer at the time, and then she passed
Mm.
away, and it just felt really tragic. Like just the whole experience was traumatizing. And then I had a baby, and like she didn't like to sleep. Is that your baby I hear?
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's got a little bit of too powerful vocal cords, so
That's
he
fine. It's
made
just
a
like
cameo.
I'm like, it's a cat. Because I was like, is it my cat? But he's still sleeping. He's
No, that one's on me.
he's over there, kind of just like, let's see if you can see him. He's there, a
Aw.
little bump there. But
Yeah, he
yeah,
sleeps a little
no,
bit better than my guy right now. Yeah.
no, don't worry, don't worry. That's the thing. I had that kid. You know what I mean? That was my kid
Mm.
crying, and so it was really hard to get back to school and finish up my last like few like chapters of my thesis.
Mm.
And so I ended up through like a really convoluted story that maybe I'll share another time too, because I know we don't have a lot of time. But I realized that I needed to like do the thing that I wanted to do, which was make music, and because you just never knew, like life, like tomorrow, today is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is definitely not guaranteed,
Mm.
And so, yeah, I would say like I'm still really thankful that I took this route, and I I wish I had known more about like how to take care of money earlier. Like if I had anything that I would like try to tell like a younger person, it would just be like, get your money right. Get your money right. But I'm still thankful. Like this has been a really cool ride, and I'm still trying. Like I'm still trying to make a go of it. But it's so far so good.
Well, that's good. So,
Yeah.
just regrets about money stuff, but not about your education. Do you regret not finishing your master's and
No, I
becoming
got
a
two
lawyer?
undergraduates. I'm good. Like for so far, I haven't needed a master's. So far.
So far, there you
Yeah.
go.
Like, yeah. If I roll up, then I wake up next tomorrow and I'm like, geez, I need a master's.
That's
I,
something you can always do. Is
I
start
can
today.
always go, I just have one chapter left to write.
Oh, you're
But
that close. Wow.
I would have to go back and like be like, what was I writing about? What did I care
You
about
have to do
20
the
something
same
years?
thing though. Legal philosophy.
Oh,
You
it
can't
was
do something
on
different.
it was on minority rights and representation.
Okay. Well, that sounds much cooler than legal philosophy. My mind kind of goes to the clouds. That sounds like a lot more interesting, actually.
But I would have to like I think I would have to put a lot of work in to like, and
Mm.
I don't even know where it is. I think it's on a floppy disk. Remember those?
A floppy disk, a
Yes,
whole
in a
megabyte of data.
yeah, like it's probably somewhere in the attic. I bet you I can't even load that document.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's gone.
Well, I think the other part about it too is like I did my undergrad. I think if I ever went back to do like further education, it would be obviously more challenging, but you'd also appreciate it a heck of a lot more. So I feel like if I ever went back, like I would like really be there. But
Let me just tell you
I don't
something
know.
though. I audited a class, like I audited a music
Uh
class,
huh.
a couple of music classes at Carleton a few years back before, just before the pandemic started.
Hmm.
I Well, okay, yes, I am a parent of three and I'm working and I'm taking care of a home. So like I'll just add all of that in, you know?
Now a class.
And then I added a class. I was like, how are these kids doing this? You know, like how are these kids I think they would be doing like 4 or 5 classes. Like and I'm just trying to do the reading for like one plus the rest of my life. Yeah. I don't know, Ryan,
Good
if you
luck.
can avoid it, if
I
you
always
can
thought,
avoid it.
I don't know. We'll see about
What
that.
was your undergraduate in?
I was even more fun than you. I did international development and political science.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's what. Okay, so I did poli sci law, but I
Uh-huh.
wanted to do international development. So I got into international development
It was pretty new when I took it, though.
no,
Did they
they
have
had it.
really?
Yeah,
Okay,
University of
go
Toronto,
figure. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
U of T.
there
Yeah,
you
U of
go.
T had it, and so I got into it there. But it was like I wanted to I wanted to go away for school because like I had applied to U of T downtown, and I got into U of T like Scarborough. So it was like just down the street from my house. And so
That's Toronto. Well.
I know, but I lived in Scarborough and I was like, I wanted to go downtown. So instead I decided to come to Carleton because they had like the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs at Carleton. So I was like, oh, maybe I could like get into that school later. And so I took poli sci and law as a combined degree. And then there was one class that was going to bring down my average in poli sci. So I dropped it to just, so it would just be like a law. Like, so I have my undergraduate in law and another one in English literature.
There you go.
There you go. But basically, like we're still doing what we like. Do you love what you're doing?
I think I wake up. I think I'm lucky. I think I've always had to figure I'd get up one day and I'd have to become a grown up and move on and do something else. But now I've been working professionally at Ryan's Well for 7 years, and it's like a dream come true. I thought it would take away from it, but I'm able to be a part of our work like every day of my life. So that's something really special. So I'm lucky. So maybe the shoe will drop one day, but I'm happy to be part of it
No,
right now.
no, I don't think it will. I think you'll. I
Well, if
like. I
not,
can
then I'll
see
keep
you're
on
glowing.
volunteering and do different things with it. Life goes in lots of different
It's
directions, but
true.
we're
It's
so
true.
excited to be, still doing stuff 22 years after we first started as an organization. It's not a lot of non-for-profit clean water organizations that do work on the other side of the world that can say that. So, yeah, we're pretty lucky and happy. Yeah.
Good job, my friend. Good job.
So we're entering November, and it's going to be December 2023 soon. Do you have any plans for December that you're going to be doing? Any big concerts?
Yeah, yeah. I'll have a concert in Toronto. So this is going out to like our Canadian folks and anybody that wants to
Yeah.
travel to Canada. but yeah, I'll have a concert in Toronto at Hughes Room Live. I think that's on the 20th, and then on the 21st, I'll be performing in London at the Wolf. This is London, Ontario, for anybody that doesn't know that there's a London in Canada. And then at the National Arts Center on the 23rd in Ottawa. So those are my Christmas concerts, and I'm super excited about that. What do you guys got coming up?
Yeah, we're doing a few different things, a little bit of presentations that I'm doing in the local area. But speaking of Toronto things, on December 2nd, actually, there'll be an event put on by the provincial, not provincial government, but by civil servants of the provincial government. Speaking music wise, it's a Battle of the Bands competition called GovFest, and they do a big fundraiser every year for the United Way and the Ryan's Well Foundation. So I'll actually be in Toronto on December 2nd attending the
But you're not
GovFest Battle
playing.
of the Bands. If I played, they wouldn't fundraise any money. It's all civil servants for the provincial government, and they all have, not they all have, but some have different bands and are part of musical groups. So it's like they civil servants go and watch, and they also perform, and it's like amazing. They've been doing it for decades, and it's a incredibly successful fundraiser, and it's a lot of fun. So that'll be
Oh, that sounds
happening on
amazing. I've
the
never heard of
second
that.
night. Yeah, it's called GovFest Battle of the Bands. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But It means the world. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat, Kellylee. So good to catch up with you, and hopefully our paths will cross once or twice more, or maybe in Toronto, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. I had a blast chatting with you, and yeah, hopefully we can do this again.
That sounds great.